What did the ocean say to the beach?
What?
Nothing. Just waves.
What?
Okay, go ahead.
I asked my date to meet me at the gym, but she never showed up. I guess the two of us aren't going to work out.
What did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet? Supplies!
Why did the football coach go to the bank? To get his quarterback.
Oh.
I tried to eat a clock the other day. It was really time consuming.
Did the baby corn say to the mama corn, "Where's popcorn?"
Do you need an arc? I know a guy.
The police knocked on my door and told me my dogs were chasing people on bikes. My dogs don't even own bikes.
What time was Adam created? A little before Eve. Did you know that the first French fries weren't even cooked in France? They were cooked in Greece.
Can I do one that I just know? What is Soldier's least favorite month? March. I said March.
Oh man, cheesy. I love them. Dad jokes. I was laughing at all those. I'm not a real big dad joke guy, but when I was reading those, I was just laughing at them the whole time, like giggling at them. ABZ is going. If you like to go to ABZ, they're doing some laser guns today. So glad that you're here. It is Father's Day, and listen, just even looking at that, somebody kind of snuck those pictures here the last couple weeks and gave them to me, and she noticed, just like a lot of us do, we got some pretty good dads in this church, and so I just can't encourage you enough to, just the fact that you're here and you're bringing your kids and you're showing them that example is just a big thing and a huge thing. And so all I can do is just continue to encourage you dads to keep doing what you're doing and just loving on your kids the best that you can. We've been going through Proverbs, and today we'll hit a little bit about what it says to be a father and what that means a little bit, and then we'll kind of go into a whole nother section that Solomon talks about when it comes to Proverbs 10. But like we've been talking about, 1 through 10, chapters 1 through 10, kind of have this, here's what it is to be righteous, and then here is what it is to be wicked, kind of look at both those roads, and look out for some of those pitfalls of life and some of the temptations that are out there, and he kind of gets specific on some of those temptations, and we see this back and forth, and even Proverbs, if it's on, hold on, I'm always dealing with that. 15, it says this, or 14, 15 says, a simple man believes anything, but a prudent man gives thought to his steps. A wise man fears the Lord and shuns evil, but a fool is hot-headed and reckless. A quick-tempered man does foolish things, and a crafty man is hated. The simple inherit folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge. When we rely, like we've been talking about, when we rely on our own wisdom, when we start to try to figure things out on our own, and maybe it's because it's personal, maybe it's because something happened to us, whatever it may be, it gets us in trouble every single time, okay? Almost always. And when we start to follow our own wisdom, a lot of times it's based out of, anger, it's based out of bitterness, it's maybe that blind rage of something that's happened to us, and it's clouded. Our wisdom becomes clouded. I don't care where you fall on the left or right or conservative, all that stuff, everybody can follow their own wisdom and go down that kind of mob mentality and not look at the wisdom that God has given us. He's given us some specifics of the law to follow and to love people and to love him. And when we get off that route and we start doing things our own way, it definitely takes us down that road. And so we always have to be checking. Why are you making these decisions? Are they come out of rage? Have they come out of bitterness? Are they coming out of jealousy and these types of things? And so we get right into that because some bad things could come when we start doing and making decisions based on our own wisdom. That's when you get a lot of division. That's when you get a lot of regrets in your life, and you're having to kind of pay for those sins, maybe the consequences of them down the road. It's where we get, racism and some of these other bigger issues that we see in our world is because we rely on our own wisdom and not what God tells us. And so we like to justify it all the way, like you said, to the grave sometimes. And we don't follow God. So, man, over and over and over again, we see this. But let's just start out in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 1. The rest of these Proverbs, we'll kind of just zip through some of them. We won't go through every single chapter. I hope that you're still doing that. It's June 19th. So if you're doing your reading, Proverbs 19 would be a great reading here this morning. Maybe add it to your quiet time or begin and start a quiet time. That's a great place to start it, is just look at the date, open up Proverbs and read that proverb. But that's chapter 10, verse 1. Let's start there. The Proverbs of Solomon: a wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son brings grief to his mother. That is so true, right? We talked about how the decisions we make, we would like to be on an island, right, and not have what we do and the decisions we make affect other people, but we're not on an island. The decisions that we do make affect people around us. They definitely affect our parents. And even as adult children, they affect us, right? Even those of you who have that maybe 7 years old or 80 years old, and you have, us grown adult children that are in their 40s and their 30s and their 50s, it's still there. The decisions that I make definitely affect my parents still to this day. And we see that. And this is kind of this reoccurring theme. We see it in Proverbs 15. We see it in 17. We see it in 23. And we see a person's wisdom or folly affects their parents. The wise son, we see this side, the wise son pursues righteousness and keeps the law. We see that in 23. Then we see the other side, while the foolish son engages in immorality and violence. We see that in chapter 19. So we see this back and forth. And here's the thing about, when it comes to dads. Definitely, I don't know where you are with your father, and maybe your father's passed away, and we're in that whole situation. Maybe you have a great relationship with your dad. Maybe it's strained. Maybe you're in your 30s, and you've never really had a great relationship with your father. I know that's not easy, but man, it does tell us a lot when it comes to the scripture that we bring joy to our father. And here's maybe me being a grown adult now and still being a son, I still want to make my dad proud, right? I'm 40-some years old, and you would think that doesn't exist anymore, but it definitely does. I still want to make him proud. I still want to tell him stuff. And so for you dads that have these sons that are maybe in their 40s and 50s, and they got a family, they got a job, a lot of times it comes off as bragging to you maybe. And maybe you even have this where you think it's almost like this jealousy thing. And I see this a lot, where the son goes to the dad and maybe he just says, hey, Dad, I got a promotion. I'm making a lot of money. I'm able to really support my family. And then the dad takes it almost as like a jealousy thing. What that son, I'm just trying to give some insight to you older fathers. What that son is really trying to say is, Dad, I'm doing it. I'm getting it done. You did your job. You taught me how to live in this world, and now I'm doing it. Look, I have a family. Look, they're not all a mess. Well, maybe one or two of them are. But I'm doing pretty good. My kid, he's an A student. And when they give you these things, they're trying to tell you that you did a good job. They're wanting you to be proud of them. They're not trying to brag. They're not trying to say, I'm this or I'm that. And that's what a lot of us sons are trying to do with our mothers as well. We're just not always really great at explaining it and putting it into words. But we're always wanting to make our parents proud. And we see that. We want to bring them joy here in chapter 10, verses 1. But real quick, let me hit these. Since it's Father's Day, I know these are obvious, but sometimes we need the obvious things here. So as a father, we talk about this joy that we bring to him. We need to say, as dads, this should be the baseline all the time, just to tell your sons and your daughters, I love you. Often. Say it. Say it this week. As they leave for school, as they leave for a class, as they leave to go do something, I love you. That should be something that you hear often. And maybe it's not something you heard a lot growing up. But as you now, as the father, you need to be saying this constantly. And this should be that baseline. It's always there. I love you. They need to hear these words. I love you. And not anything other than just that. And the other one, it's a little more specific, of course. It says, I'm proud of you. Now, I love my dad. Love him to death. And we've even had this conversation before, because he would always say this to me. He would say, Jason, I am proud of you. And I was like, Dad, I just struck out 4 times in a row. All right, you can't be proud of me. I'm not a good baseball player. I did horrible today. So don't tell me you're proud of me when I know. What you should be is just more specific. Just say, I'm proud of the fact that you didn't throw a tantrum, that you got thrown, struck out 4 times. Or that you didn't give up and just say, I'm done with baseball, and that you're still trying it. Just be specific when it comes to that, I'm proud of you. And tell them those things. Be specific. Say, I'm proud that you go and you do the things that you do. I'm proud that you have a family and you've got all this going on. You're able to handle it. And you're able to juggle it. I'm proud that you're such a good husband to your wife. Whatever it may be specific. That's what these sons and these daughters, they need to hear. And the other thing is this, and this might not make sense to maybe some of you, but tell them thank you. Tell them thank you for the chores that they just did. Right? Tell them thank you for mowing the yard. Tell them thank you for whatever you see them do. Because here's the thing. You'll say, well, that's their job. I tell them to do what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to do the chores. They're supposed to mow the yard. You want food? You want a roof over your head? This is how you do it. But still telling them that you're thankful for doing that. Thank you for mowing the yard. I only had to ask you once. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that you did it again and again. Thank you for cleaning your room. I appreciate that. What it does is this. It puts confidence and appreciation into your kids, and they need to hear that. They need to know that there's no question that you're proud of them. Because when you don't say it, they're always going to what? They're going to question it. Even if you did it perfectly, and you mowed the yard, and you never said anything, and you did it without even being told, when you tell them, now they know. They're secure. They find that security. It's a hard thing when you're an adult and you don't have that security. And there's a lot of dads that are older now that they don't have that security. They're still wondering, is Dad proud of me? Right? Is Dad proud of what I'm doing? And that's going to carry on to being a parent. It's going to carry on to their work and their career. It's going to carry on to a lot of different things. So let's go to chapter 5, or verse 5 of Proverbs here as we get into it. So we see kind of a change, but let's go over these real fast. He says this, he who gathers crops in the summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps during harvest is a disgraceful son. I don't know if that's ever happened with you farmers, where the son's like, it's harvest, I'm out, I got vacation, I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I can see that going over really, really well. Verse 6, blessings crown the head of the righteous, but violence overwhelms the mouth of the wicked. The name of the righteous is used in blessings, but the name of the wicked will rot. And so now we start to see this switch over from being prudent, from production, from not being lazy, from working hard, to words. Here's where we get in trouble, right? Words. Anybody ever get in trouble for using too many words? No, none of you, right? None of us. We've never just put our foot in our mouth. Right? 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 Are we good? Are we listening? Yeah. This is a tough one, man. This is so true. And this is Solomon saying, all right, here we go. This is a big part of following God, and we need to listen to it. So look at verse 8. It says this, the wise in heart accept commands, but a chattering fool comes to ruin. So you're already thinking in your head who this is. Don't do that. Don't do that. But I thought about this when I'm reading this week. I'm thinking this is like a perfect example when it comes to farming, I'd imagine. Because in farming, you guys have a lot of grunt work, right? You have a lot of things you just got to get done. You got to get a trailer hooked up. You got to move this hay bale to this place. You got to put that tractor in that field, right? The south field, not the north field, whatever it may be. You can look at me silly or whatever. I don't know if that's true or not, if that's close or accurate. But if you get a hired hand, this is how I would see it. That hired hand was always questioning your commands. How would that go? He's just there for the grunt work. Right? He's just there to get a tractor. And if you said, hey, let's put the combine, it's getting ready for harvest, we need to get that in the south field. And he says, are you sure? Are you sure we should do the south field? How does that go over? Very well? No. Does it? I don't know. Maybe you're like, well, I don't know, little 17-year-old hired hand. Maybe you got something there. No, there's something that happens. Just think about, maybe this is you. Maybe you're the one who questions your boss all the time. So it's always easy to question, right? Because you're not in charge. The second the hired hand says that, you just say, hey, you want to do this? Because I've been doing this for about 25 years. I kind of know how things grow, and I know when they need to be cut. You want to jump in? You can do it, and we'll watch the disaster in front of us. There's times we all are leaders, and there's times that we are all good followers. But the person who continues to ask questions and question everything that person does, there's something wrong. There's some arrogance in there, isn't there? There's like, wait a second, are you sure you thought through all of this? And the farmer's going to say, yeah, I have, thanks. Thanks a lot. So it's interesting when we get into the specifics of Solomon. He knows exactly what's going on, and our words have a lot to do with it. Our words, man, they affect so much throughout the week. All right, let's keep going. Verse 9 says this: whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. Whoever winks maliciously causes grief, and a chattering fool comes to ruin. I want to hit this one just real fast, and we'll kind of zip through the rest of them. This one, when we started Proverbs, I said there's times when you read the proverb and it just hits home. You're like, whoa, that is a truth. This one hit me one time hard. I read it before, and I was like, okay, I don't know really what that really means. But then when I experienced it, I was like, oh, man. So years ago, I was having a little bit of a confrontation, and so I went to a person that I felt had some wisdom, maybe godly wisdom, that was seeking that out. Found out this person, I read this a week later, but this person did exactly this. The person winked at me, gave me that little grin. I thought, oh, interesting. And then I saw the words. I listened to the words after, and they led to division. They led to not what we see, like a fountain. It was negative. It was not godly wisdom. And then I read this verse and I was like, man, how does Solomon know this stuff? How does God know this is how things work? And so for me, that was an example for me when I read Proverbs. There's sometimes that we go through the experience, then we read this passage, and it is just truth like no other to just hit you upside the head. And that was one of them. This is verse 11. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life. So this is where we get into it. Folks, this is, if we're following Christ, right? If we're following Christ, then our words need to be a fountain of life. If you're following the path of God, your speech, your words, they will be filtered, right? They will bring encouragement to people. And then what will happen? People will trust you, right? You will not be considered shady. You will not be considered selfish or misleading, and people will ask that such important question. What is this faith that you have? You are different than other people. Reading this all week, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. This week, in every conversation, I'm going to try very hard to just be 100% positive. I'm not going to bring out those little morsels of whatever, of gossip, or put a little bit of doubt, of shade on somebody, or complain about something. I'm telling you, it was not easy to do. And maybe I've even talked to somebody. There was one, I let it fly. And it was little. It was more of my look. It was more of my, they were talking about this person. This person didn't know who I was talking about. And I said it, and I went, I did one of those. It is difficult. But I'm telling you, we need to be 100% on this. Not 90% of our conversation is good, and then we throw in, a little bit of sarcasm, a little bit of passive aggressiveness. As followers of Christ, it is so important that our speech is a fountain of life, that it doesn't tear apart, that our words don't lead to some division, that our words don't lead to, second guessing everything and questioning everything that is out there, because we need to look at our own motives. Are we looking at our own wisdom? Or are we looking at the wisdom of God here? So how are we making decisions? Are we making them out of jealousy? Are we making them out of bitterness? Are we making them out of selfishness? Or are they heading towards what Christ wants us to do and the commands that we see? So let's keep going. Verse 12 says this: hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers over all wrongs. Wisdom is found on the lips of the discerning, but a rod is for the back of the one who has no sense. The wise store up knowledge, but the mouth of the fool invites ruin. The wealth of the rich is the fortified city, but poverty is the ruin of the poor. The wages of righteousness is life, but the earnings of the wicked are sin and death. Whoever heeds discipline shows the way to life, but whoever ignores correction leads others astray. Whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and spreads slander is a fool. And there is a lot here about somebody who conceals the hatred. What does that look like? It looks like the nice, innocent person is what it looks like. It's not, oh, this is what it kind of sounds like. I don't hate this person, but, dot. Ever heard that before? I don't want to get into it. I mean, this person's good, but, dot. Right? They sound nice. They sound sweet. They sound innocent. But if you listen to the words, they're divisive. And they shed doubt on that person's integrity or who that person is. And as followers of Christ, man, this has got to be a practice that we practice. This has got to be something that we take heed to. If not, God tells us we're fools. We're fools if we don't, if we just let it fly. So verse 19, sin is not ended. I love this. This is, sin is not ended by multiplying words. You can't dig yourself out of it. Don't dig yourself out of it. It is what it is, right? But the prudent hold their tongues. The tongue of the righteous is choice silver, but the heart of the wicked is of little value. The lips of the righteous nourish many, but the fools die for lack of sense. Let me read verse 19 again. It's a different translation. It also says, where words are many, transgressions is not lacking. Whoever restrains their lips is prudent. Words. They get us in trouble. Do they not? Think about the conversations you've had just today, maybe this week. They get us in trouble. And as followers of Christ, this is where we've got to be very, very careful. Ever, I don't have to say that, but you ever, get caught talking behind somebody's back and they walk into the door and how you feel? Ever send a text that you're not supposed to tell? You send the wrong text to somebody and it goes out and you're like, that happens. And I'll give you an example of somebody I know. That's happened many, many times. Too many for some of you, obviously. But that person that got that text one time, they were gracious. They were loving. They weren't like, oh, well, I'll ignore you for the next 2 years and be cold. They were very forgiving. How refreshing is that? Hey, I'm sinful. I understand. This other person saying, I'm sinful. Please forgive me. And we get to see how it all really works instead of this road down to this bitter thing. Words get us in trouble. What's Solomon saying? Let's not use so many words. That's what he's saying. So think about it. Think about how often that we're talking. James 1:26 says this, those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, but their religion is worthless. I don't know what else to say other than that passage is James. So we all know each other here. We're all friends here. We really do. We need to button down. We need to say, all right, let's really evaluate our lives. Let's evaluate the conversations that we're having. And that's not just let it fly. Can we have 100% conversations with people that are 100% a fountain of life, where we're not thrown in little pieces here and there? Because I think that's what's happened when it comes to the Christian circles in the world today. That's just my opinion, because I hear it, and I'm there. I'm with you. I've done that. And this person that I casted kind of a little bit of doubt this week, I feel bad about it now. I've asked for forgiveness. I said, God, I know this is not easy. I almost feel like I need to go back to that person and just say, I'm sorry I even mentioned that. I know you probably didn't even notice that, but listen, I got to get away from those kind of conversations completely. Solomon is saying the best way to control what you're saying is to control how much you say. And what's the whole wise saying that your mom said? Nailed it. Yes, and it is true. But for some reason, it's like we're okay with it now, and we can't be. This is, gossip and saying things we shouldn't be saying is in all the verses and all these other sins that we see in the Bible. It's right there with it. It's right alongside with those things. So we'll end with this. Let me just see the conversation, because this is what I think happens, is if I can get as practical as I can. Because this is what happens to me, at least, and maybe you can relate. Maybe I'm at a baseball game, right? Maybe I'm at my job. Not really with my job. I guess it could be with me and Rhonda and Jordan, definitely. It could be, I'm just trying to think of other situations you might be in. And you're sitting and you're going to start talking to somebody. You got 20, 30 minutes ahead of you. You got no place to be, and you start chit-chatting, right? You start talking about the weather. It's 100 million degrees. Yes, it's like a hair dryer. You kind of get through the niceties and the chit chat with each other. And then you start actually talking to each other. And you start kind of getting this bond a little bit, right? A little connection, like, oh, this is nice. And then that temptation is always there to start letting it fly a little bit, isn't it? Well, since we're on the subject, you know, what's going on with this? And like I was telling the Sunday school teachers, when they go, oh, really? You know, what happened? When those kind of things are happening, you know, run away. The other scriptures in the New Testament says, don't even be around that. Run from that. We start to have this temptation where we just think it's okay to kind of throw some things in. I'm saying not even a little bit. Because with that conversation, even if it was 98% positive all the way through it, and I just kind of chuck a little bit of an insult with somebody in there, it's like it ruins it. It ruins my witness of who I am and who I'm trying to live for. That's what it does. We talked about, you know, at our work and the influence that we could have at our workplace. This is where it probably happens a good chunk of the time, other than maybe with our spouse. That happens a lot. That's a whole nother sermon right there. Yeah. Proverbs 25:23. This is rough. The north wind brings forth rain, and a backbiting tongue, angry looks. That's what it's like. It's like backbiting. It hurts. It's not good. It's not great. Not good at all. If we're going to be effective as followers of Christ, we've got to be paying attention to the words that we're saying. And I'm just here to say it out loud because Solomon's saying it out loud. I'm talking about myself all the time. I got to watch what I say. We can't let that be acceptable in our lives as followers of Christ. We just can't. So as Christians talking to Christians and the conversations that we have with each other, let's be careful. Let's not let those sneak in. Because here's the thing. That 1 Peter 3:15 happens all the time. Always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you for the hope that you have. They're going to ask you that if you're not like everybody else. And they're going to listen to your conversation, and they're going to go, nothing negative comes out of that guy. I even tried to set him up about a person, and he just let it go right by. He bit his tongue, no words came out. I had the temptation because I had some juicy bits that I could have thrown in there, but I didn't. And after about 2 or 3 of those conversations, they're going to ask you, what is it about you? Why are you different? And you could say, well, Solomon tells me not to use so many words because it gets me in trouble. Really? Yeah, God tells me that brings me to ruin. I don't want to bring things to ruin. I don't want to bring things to divide. I don't want to destroy things and be destroyed like we see it in the Bible. People are going to ask you. But if people aren't asking that question, maybe they don't see a difference. Right? Maybe they don't see a whole lot of difference between other people. I'm telling you, our speech can really be an amazing example of who Christ is this morning. So, Solomon's just giving it to us here good with the words. And we can go into a whole lot more details this morning. But I would ask you this week to really think about it. As you go into the conversations that you have, and you'll have many, most of the time there'll be just like chit-chat, but you'll go a little bit maybe the next step here and there with those conversations. And when you're tempted to start saying something negative, don't. It's that simple. Don't do it. Bite your tongue. Use less words. And let's see how that works. Let's see what God does through that. And continue to be conscious of that, and just let's not let it be an okay thing around the Christian circles that we have. Let's pray. Father, I thank you for today. I thank you for your Proverbs. I thank you for the wisdom that you give us through them. And Lord, our speech is just such an important thing. So Lord, I pray that this week that I can pay attention. Again, even and more so to the positive and the negative. And I pray that my words can be a fountain to those around them. And that I can be uplifting, that I can be encouraging, that I am able to overcome the temptation just to throw a zinger here and there about people, and to just have that integrity, so that people can ask me who you are, because it's just not what we see in this world today. So I pray that we can be a light, that we can overcome the temptation. And I pray that we can really put in place what you have told us here in chapter 10 of Proverbs. Lord, we love you and we thank you. In the name of Jesus Christ that we pray. Amen.
Please stand.